Everyone has a story to tell. Welcome to DingoTalk, where we explore the experiences that make us who we are. Here's your host, Carlo Guadagnino.
What's going on, Chuckleheads? Welcome back to Dingo Talk. I am Carlo Guadagnino, and this week we stay in the OAC with head coach of Ohio Northern, Dean Paul. Before I go any further, let's talk about where you can find us. The social medias are Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. The listening aspect of it, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and anywhere else that you listen to your podcast. And to watch us, you can see us here on YouTube. The social medias, everything's the same. The only thing you change is the Instagram account. It's dingo_talk. And you'll find everything that we've done and what we're planning to do on those pages. Coach Dean Paul is entering his 19th year at Ohio Northern. And we're going to really dive in on the longevity, why he's been at Ohio Northern for as long as he had, the family connections that he has to Ohio Northern. And his own words, he's not going to sell you on Ohio Northern, but he's going to, it's more tell that story. And if that story fits you, then he'd like to see you come to campus. The other big things, as we have been talking about, why Division III, what's the importance of Division III, why the OAC is the conference, the SEC of Division III, as the previous two coaches, Coach Donaldson and Coach Hilvert, both stated in their interviews. And then just a couple questions here and there to see who the guy is, you know. And I got to point out, we're going to do another one of those, the editorial segments with Serenity Brown. Hopefully she comes with some type of critique this week and not just sit there and agree with me. That was great, though. I mean, I felt boost to the ego, so appreciate that. But without further ado, this is head coach of Ohio Northern, Dean Paul. Welcome back, Chuckleheads. This is Dingo Talk. I am Carlo Guadagnino. My guest, Coach Dean Paul from Ohio Northern University. Coach, thank you for taking time to sit down with us.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely. I got to ask you, is it snowing out there? It's snowing here in Morgantown. I've been out in it all day.
Yeah, not much, minimal snow, but still cold. It's definitely cold.
So the OAC runs pretty deep for you, and we're gonna cover that. I mean, you have family members that have been all over the OAC, yourself, your kids. So we're gonna jump in 1986, which is a pretty important year for Mount Union. But I'm going to ask first, why did you choose Mount Union when being from, and I want to make sure I get this right, Garrettsville, Ohio, you had some colleges around you.
Yeah,
so why Mount Union?
Well, Garrettsville, also known as G-Tucky by some people in Northeast Ohio. So, it was about 45 minutes away. I think I had a high school girlfriend at the time. So, that was kind of, stay kind of close to home. And I was recruited by, a few other D3 schools, but I would say it wasn't like I was heavily recruited, BW. And you mentioned Bethany. Actually, I visited Bethany and Muskingum and, a handful of them, Ashland. But I don't think Ashland was Division II. They were just kind of, I think I was a roster spot. I don't think I was like a big time recruit for them or anything. But ONU was probably in those days was an option too, but Route 30 wasn't finished in those days. So it was two lanes for like 60 miles. So that was a no-go because it took a lot longer to get here in those days than it did now. Sorry about my dogs, but yeah, Mountain was pretty close. They were coming off their first 10-0 season, went to the game visit against BW. They tore the goalpost down. That was pretty cool. I had a cousin that was going to be a senior baseball player. That was kind of nice too. So yeah, it made sense.
Now, why you graduate with a bachelor's in science and sports management? Why was sports management where you went? And was that always going to be your major? Like, did you go into school knowing that's what you wanted to get into?
I wanted to coach. I was pretty sure about it fairly early. Kind of helped with I'm the oldest, so my younger siblings helped with different sports. I definitely felt kind of drawn to coaching. Our family business was a lumberyard, so that was like maybe a backup plan at some point, but my parents were real supportive that, to pursue your passions was a big thing for them. Feed your passions was always their deal. Whatever the passions were of us as, myself and my siblings, they're going to feed the passions, and whether it was sports, whether it was, profession, whatever it was. They were very supportive with that. But yeah, Mount with the sport management was kind of a newer major back in those days. And knowing I wanted to coach, being around great coaches like Coach Karis and Tom Montgomery, the defensive coordinator, and just a great group of coaches, got you even more excited about coaching. So that was definitely kind of the thought process.
Are there any stories from Coach Karis? Because I know that he's very influential for you. Are there any stories that you'd like to share with us from your two?
Yeah. No doubt. I mean, there'd be a bunch of them, but I'll pick. I guess one that stands out to me is that kind of the first one that stands out is at Thomas More College, first time head coach. I think our third year we had a great season. Going to the national playoffs, and Mount Union had a bye in week one in those days. So we're getting ready to play a playoff game in week one. They have a bye. Mike Hallett, our offensive coordinator, is also a Mount Union grad. So here Coach Karis takes time during a bye week, sends flowers to us to say, hey, you knuckleheads, your wives have put up with this, with you two knuckleheads all year. And he knew it was some heavy lifting to get that program going, but we got it going and we had a great season. He said, give your wives these flowers with a little card. It's like, wow, that was, just to take the time to do that, was pretty awesome. And that's the Larry Karis. A lot of people, don't know some of the things like that about great coach and all that, but great man and very supportive.
And on the influential topic, who would you say the three most influential people are in your life?
Well, I think my parents have to be at the top. I think from a professional standpoint and personal standpoint, parents, I think Coach Karis was definitely a big influence playing for him, and he created a job. I graduated in December and he created a job for me, knowing that I wanted to get into this profession, and I was looking in January for the next move and hoping to get something that spring, some type of graduate assistant position or something like that. And he made me the director of he created a position that was like director of minority recruiting. So that was kind of a new job, hit some of these areas that were maybe underrepresented in recruiting. And that was pretty cool to get some experience recruiting. I'd always been like the guy who was helping with hosting recruits and things like that, but myself and some of my friends, my teammates. But yeah, that was great. And then I would say Ken O'Keefe was the first guy that I worked for, was a tremendous influence professionally. Kenny O'Keefe at Allegheny College had a ton of success. Was at Allegheny for 6 years, and I think he was like 60-7 or something like that. Won a national championship. And then I worked for him again at Fordham University. So I worked for him twice, and another just great person, great coach, but also a great person. So that'd probably be, top three. I mean, besides, of course, my wife's the truth teller. She will, whenever I'm starting to act up, she'll kind of get me straight and say, that's dumb. Don't do that.
I think we all have one of those in our lives that just says like, hey, don't do that. Do that.
Yeah, she's definitely my truth teller. So she'll keep me straight whenever I need to.
Brought up Allegheny, so I think that's a good place to start that's the beginning of your coach's journey. You come in as the running backs coach, coming off of as a running back at Mount Union. Why Allegheny? Why was that the only job you applied for and it was just kind of a hit, or did you have a couple other offers? How did that play out?
Definitely not the only job I applied for. There's definitely a lot of jobs that I applied for at that point, because you're trying to get your foot in the door. And of course, you're thinking big, trying to use any kind of connection you have. And the Mount Union family definitely helped, the network there with playing there. And Coach Karis and the other coaches helped me, maybe see a couple cracks in the door open. But the nice thing about Allegheny was we had just played them 2 years in a row, 3 years in a row. Twice in the regular season and once in the playoffs. So, they knew us, we knew them. And, it was just, perfect timing, really. Kind of a late opening. It was probably like May. They had a younger coach, an intern is what the position was called, leave. And there was usually 2-year positions at Allegheny. So position was open, trying to get my foot in the door in some other ones. But when that one was open, and you know, great. I knew a lot about their program, great coaches. That was a no brainer that you got to take a job like that. So it was great experience. So many great people. You know, I mentioned Coach O'Keefe.
Mhm.
Joe Philbin ended up being, you know, who's in the NFL right now with the, you know, had been the head coach of the Miami Dolphins and was with the Cowboys. He was our offensive coordinator. And it was just you know, Bob Frazier was a linebacker coach. He's with Rutgers right now, and some other
Mhm.
guys that are successful small college and high school coaches. So just a tremendous group of people.
Now, when does the move from Allegheny to Tulane happen?
So I was there 2 full years,
Okay.
and would have been like the spring. You know, the Allegheny position was usually like normally a 2-year position. Coach
Mhm.
O'Keefe was big on fulfilling your commitments. You know, I had an opportunity after year one, and he said, you know, you can try to chase the money, but or you can fulfill your commitment. And I'm glad I fulfilled my commitment because you know, he opened the door and got me going. Anyways, uh, Joe Philbin on our staff had been a graduate assistant that I mentioned, the offensive coordinator, had been a
Mhm.
graduate assistant at Tulane, still had a couple contacts. Most of the coaching staff was different, but the administrative assistant, the secretary was still the same person. She would take all the resumes and, you know, in those days, like email was probably like, I don't even think email was really much of a thing at this point. This is like 1993. So she made sure that my letter that went sent in the mail got to the head coach. You know, so she kind of helped open the door and you know, got my foot in the door and they were looking for somebody that could they really were looking for somebody on defense at that point. And I played offense, I coached offense, but you know, they wanted somebody who could get admitted to their school.
Mhm.
I was able to do that and then the connection, I think, helping to open the door. And the head coach had some Northeast connections, kind of like Coach O'Keefe. So I think he made it, you know, saw some common ground, made a call, and that helped get the door open for me. So that was a really good. Learned a lot of football those 2 years. It was on
And
both sides of the ball, so really good.
I have to clarify for I'm sure some of the members of my audience. What Coach is talking about is what you used to do is you would take your resume and your cover letter and you'd put it in an envelope and you'd put a stamp on it, and then you would mail
Yes,
that piece of paper
yes,
to the place that you wanted to draw. Just so nobody's
that's
confused, it's like email, but you actually
right.
physically had to do it. Um,
No doubt. There's probably some people like, what in the world is he talking about?
you
So,
send letters? What were you? So you go from Tulane to Wooster. Did I say that right?
yeah.
Because I know there's some. I know you get up into Mass and you get into Ohio. There's two different ways. So
Yeah,
why
I would
Wooster?
say Worcester. Worcester, you know, Worcester. So after 2 years at Tulane, you kind of at a crossroads sometimes. Like, do I want to keep chasing the Division One, you know, kind of path? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that was something I thought about. There was, yeah, a lot of times you thought, okay, do I take an off the field position? You know, I've done the intern for 2 years, done the graduate assistant for 2 years. So do I maybe I'm a personnel, you know, position. There weren't as many of those in those days as there are now. Now there's like director operations, there's the scouting, there's the personnel, there's a bunch of
Mm-hmm.
positions, analysts, you know. It was pretty much you were either a GA and there was only like two of them, or you were, you know, maybe gonna you know, maybe there was one guy that would be like video or scouting,
Mm-hmm.
but you didn't have these analyst positions. Anyways, director of football operations was a consideration. There was a position there, but I wanted to coach. That's the bottom line. And I felt like I was really concerned if I stepped on one of the off the field positions that I might not be able to get back in. So there was a job there that I was in the mix for. But when the you know the I loved Worcester's campus. I had been on that campus before from being from Northeast Ohio, and at Mount Union we played Worcester one year out of conference.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought the campus was great. I knew they really struggled in football. They were 1-9 the year before, but we had a new head coach who came from doing well. His name is Jim Barnes. He had been Ohio Wesleyan when they were really rolling at that point. So he was a newer, younger head coach. I loved the campus. Like I said, thought you could win there. They're winning in basketball and baseball, and so you know, a chance to get kind of back to Ohio was attractive. So even though it was Division III, and I'd been kind of trying this Division I thing, I didn't care. I wanted to coach ball. Being a defensive coordinator at that time, I thought I was ready. I probably wasn't. But it was a great opportunity to learn, and we did well. We were able to win pretty quick. We went from 1-9 to 5-5, 7-3 to 9-1. So it was a great 3 years. Loved it. Really good coaching staff, great guys to work with. Still friends to this day to pretty much all those guys. So really good group of coaches, and we got some things rolling. So that was fun.
When you brought up an interesting point there, and I think players like coaches look at it the same way. Do you want to keep chasing that D1 thing, or do you want to go and take your stab at D3? My question for you is, why Division III? What is so special, important? What makes Division III Division III?
Well, I think there's a couple things that are different, and I think there's a couple things that every level has their pros and cons, right? I mean, sure, it'd be nice to offer a scholarship and those type of things, but I think at the end of the day, like, one of the things I like about this level is there's true balance. You really don't have to choose academics or football or athletics. You can really choose both. I mean, and I think sometimes it's questionable whether that's really the case at the scholarship level, because there's scholarships involved. It's it's a different mindset. It's a little more business-like. So in many cases, I'm not saying all cases, but I think there's a true balance, which is awesome. I think there's the other thing is, like, if you don't want to play, you just walk away. There was no question in my mind that sometimes at the scholarship level, there were guys that were staying with it because they were getting school paid for, not because they really wanted to. If we have a young man who just says, I just don't think I can do it or don't want to do it, okay, and they want to walk away, then their financial aid package doesn't change. They just walk away.
Yeah.
So I think it's pure, right? That's one of the things to think about. Is pure. People are playing because they truly want to play. And
you took my other question.
Yeah. Okay.
You took my other question. I was going to ask you if you thought Division III was a pure form, more pure form. I mean, obviously, football is football. It's a gladiator sport, but Division III, you're at the purest level because there isn't as much money in the athletics. It's more, if you're academically going to get a scholarship, you're good, but you're not going to get paid to step foot on the football field.
No doubt. I mean, I think that is a great way to describe it, pure from that standpoint. And there's I think there's something about that I think is something I enjoy, and I think that balance is a big word too, because we work hard, we put hours in. There's no doubt about it. But I think there's some things for players and coaches that there's a little more balance. Talking to a Division I, and again, we work hard, Carlo. We put time in, no doubt about it. But I was talking to a friend, I think right around, I remember it was Christmas. It was like December 22nd, and it was his first day off since July 25th. And I was like, we work hard, but we've had, he's a Division I level. And we work hard, but we take some time off. We try to find that balance, that the work-life balance is there, where we do what we need to do to be prepared and work at it, but at the same time, within reason. So there is some balance. I think the same thing for the players. I mean, talk about the 20-hour rule at the Division I level, and a lot of times they joke about it, saying it's not a real, they don't really necessarily comply with that. But we're going to keep practices. A place like Ohio Northern, we have 45 engineers, and we've got a lot of, guys in difficult, challenging, demanding majors. So we have to keep practice 2 hours. We have to keep our meetings concise. We need to be efficient so that guys truly can balance both. So I think that works well for the players and for the coaches.
Well, and I think that the balance, and like you said, I hate using that word purity, because I think balance, I think I'm going to stay with balance and not pure. I think the balance is the right way to say it, because it is more about the student coming to the school to get the education. You're getting the opportunity to play football, but more importantly, this was your foot in the door for the education of what you're going to do for the rest of your life.
No doubt.
So from Wooster, and you spent 3 years there, then Fordham comes along, and that is you and Coach OKeefe reconnecting. Now, was that just he got that job and reached out to you, or were you ready to make a move?
Yes. So I was engaged at the time, and was enjoying Northeast Ohio, being an hour from my parents and my siblings and some of that. But I knew, like, okay, Coach O'Keefe's, love him, great coach, and hard guy to say no to. And one of my good friends was going to be, really, it was almost like a reconnecting, like the band's back together a little bit. There was all these guys that had worked for him and asked to come along. I hadn't even seen the place. Internet web pages in those days were pretty basic. So you're looking at some pictures. Okay, we're going to New York. I've been in New York City a couple of times, but Fordham's in the Bronx. And I show up, I'm like, okay, I'm going to take it. And, I think it was the appeal was Coach O'Keefe. I knew if he was taking the job, they were going to be serious about winning because he doesn't mess around. He's going to go somewhere with their support. He had things rolling at Allegheny. He had other opportunities to leave. If he was leaving Allegheny, this was going to be a good situation. And with the people we were coming together, like I said, offensive core is a good friend of mine. Defensive core, was on the staff before, so we were all getting together, going to New York to to get some things going there. So, but it was pretty wild rolling in there. Like their campus is very almost like a fortress because it's in the Bronx.
Okay.
So you show up. I hadn't signed a contract yet. I pull in with my little Ford Mustang packed up with a bunch of stuff in my car, knowing I was gonna, leave the rest of the stuff with my, now wife Tanya at her apartment, coming back sometime when spring break or something, because this would have been like in the probably this time of year, maybe a little later. But anyways, you show up to the front gates and they don't want to let you in because I don't have an ID.
Oh.
And they were very, very tight security at Fordham. So, I basically had to get somebody call and I had to call somebody like in the athletic department and say, hey, you can let them in. But I was waiting there for a while because they just wouldn't let you in. So, but it was a good experience, good people. We weren't there very long because then Coach O'Keefe ended up taking the offensive coordinator job at Iowa. So we all knew that, okay, that probably was not going to be a good thing because we were all pretty young and nobody, we had a good first season there, but nobody who had really enough experience to say, hey, I'm ready to be the next head coach. Maybe if we had been there another 2 or 3 or 4 years, but none of us had Northeast connections. We were all like either Western Pennsylvania Yinzers or Northeast Ohio guys. So like we were not connected, and it was like, okay, this is how Division I football works. They're going to probably hire somebody outside, and we're going to need to start looking. So that's kind of how it went down.
So when that all starts playing out, do you find that is that how the Thomas More job it kind of catches your eye? And what was so attractive about? Because now you're going to Kentucky. You're going from New York to Kentucky.
So the first thing they told you, said, hey, while we're hiring a new head coach, keep recruiting. You're going to get an interview. That's what they told us. Okay. All right. So kept recruiting, kept working at it. About a month. At the meantime, you're also keeping your eyes open, keeping a head in the swivel, what opportunities are out there. So Thomas More was open. They had only had one head. They were a newer program. They only had football for about, I think it was about 8-9 years at that point. They had some success. They slipped off. They were 3-7, but I knew they had potential. It was right in Northern Kentucky, right across the river. Division III. I felt like you have a pretty good resume for a Division III coach with the Wooster and the Mount Union and Allegheny. So, anyways, I put my name in for it. I was pretty young. I guess I was about 31 or 32 or something like that. But I wanted to, if Fordham was a chance to stay, then I might stay, because who knows what's going to happen with that. I remember Washington Jefferson, not far from you, also had a defensive coordinator job open, so I applied for that. Talked to Coach Banaszak back in the day. But anyways, the hire a new coach at Fordham. We're told we're going to come off the road recruiting. I think I was in Chicago hitting some of the Catholic schools there because Fordham's a big Jesuit Catholic school. Drive back from Chicago to New York. So we weren't flying, we were driving. We got off the road and the coach, pulls us in for the interview, each of us one by one. And he says, this is my interview. He says, I've heard some good things about you. I've offered your job to someone else. If he doesn't take it, then we'll sit down and talk. So I'm like, okay, I guess that's how this kind of works in the Division I level. Like he already offered your job to somebody else. He wants. I get it. Like he wanted to bring his own guys and all that kind of stuff. So now I knew I was really hoping that Thomas More job was going to work out because I had like a couple weeks or a month maybe, getting paid, and luckily it did. it was appealing because I like the location right across the river in northern Kentucky.
Mhm.
They, even though they struggled the last couple of years, they had some success. Felt like there were some positives for sure. That you could promote and you could get excited about, and then we were able to turn it around pretty quick.
Well, and I haven't got. I've been keeping these stats to myself for a second here, but now we can, as a head coach, going into season 24, 5 years at Thomas More. You just completed year 19. We're going into season 20 at, I guess that would make 25. I didn't do that math right. That'll be in the editorial. I'll bet money on that
right.
one. With 154 and 76 in the 25 years that you've been coaching total as a head coach, 114 and 64 at Northern. What do you attribute the success of where you've gone as a head coach? I mean, the Thomas More now, I played against them when I was at Bethany, against Coach Hilbert. So that I know the program. Ohio Northern, I mean, you guys, 11 out of the 18 years you've been there, you've been nationally ranked. So there's success that comes with this, with you being around these programs. What is it?
I mean, first of all, you got to take good jobs, right? That's you have to take, part of it is, a place where you can have success, right?
Mm-hmm.
A place where you have things you can promote in recruiting, things you can, I don't like to use the word sell, just tell a story. I think Ohio Northern, and I think Thomas More was the same way, there was plenty to talk about and to tell a story about what the experience could be like.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was something that, I've always felt like, trying to find, the place that really, had some of those things that you would be able to tell that story and paint that vision of what the experience could be like. So I think at Thomas More, we had some challenges. You want to identify the challenges,
Mm-hmm.
and then figure out a more plan to not sit around and whine and complain about the challenges, but how do we overcome them? I mean, Coach Karis said this way back when too. I mean, he felt like when they turned the corner about Union back in the day was when they stopped sitting around complaining about what they didn't have and what, say, BW was rolling those days or whoever it was. Like, instead of complaining about what they didn't have, it's like, okay, what do we have? And let's really accentuate that. Let's emphasize that. Let's manage our challenges. Let's overcome our challenges. And it's not easy, right? I mean, the OAC is brutal, and I felt like we didn't have a bad football team last year, but we had our worst record. We don't feel we're that far off, but the bottom line is we didn't get it done. So I think ultimately, continue to grow is a big thing too, right? Like sitting around thinking you have all the answers. I think longevity comes from just growth and being humble, and try to figure out, okay, what are those things that are our strengths, but also, okay, what are the things we need to work on, and knowing that we don't have the answers, that there's always something to learn. There's always, I think that's a big thing that, Coach was a common ground with Ken O'Keefe and Larry Karis was about the process, and about the process, about preparation, about growth. And those are things I think that we've tried to use in our program to help us overcome some disappointment, but also to help us come back. I think one of the things we're most proud of is some of our best moments have been on the heels of what some would say some disappointment. And that's what we're hoping we can do going forward.
Well, now, if I'm a parent, is your message to me for my student? What is the benefit of Ohio Northern for my child?
Yeah, we talked about balance a little bit earlier of the experience of Division III. I think a place like Ohio Northern, you really don't have to choose. You really do have evidence. A lot of times in recruiting, there's a lot of opinions.
Yeah.
And not, in my opinion, in my thought, is not enough facts. And I think, the facts are that Ohio Northern, you're going to, it shows you're going to get a great job. You're going to have return on investment. You want to look at Zipyet.com. You want to look at, payscale.com, and you're going to see that our students get good jobs and they are able to be successful, pay back their loans and start great careers. And so those are facts. It's not opinion. I mean, Zipyet.com says we're number one in Ohio for 3 years in a row. Number one, not good, not like top five, number one. So I think that's something that's, that we think is important. And I think there's a tradition of a national reputation athletically. I think, we came up short last year, but we feel like, we're a step away, a play away. We're not that far off being an elite nationally ranked program. So you really don't have to choose, you really have both. And I think at the same time, there's also a really good atmosphere. A lot of students stay here. The retention's really high. I think people like it, and people try to say, "Oh, it's a small town, it's the middle of nowhere," whatever they try to say. But at the end of the day, like 89% of our students stay. They come here and they stay. So, I'm not really good at math, I guess, but I think I'm good enough to know that like 89% is very high compared to a lot of our peers, and they find they find that this small town is a great place to be, and there is a really good atmosphere. So I think that the last piece of that message is that what drives us every single day as a coaching staff, gets us up early, what keeps us working late at night, is to give our players the very best experience. Always trying to get better, always trying to grow. It's not just about trying to win a game on Saturday. We want to provide a impactful, life-changing experience. And that's something that just drives us every single day. And people say, how do you, why are you still at ONU, or, how do you, what motivates you? And that motivates me, every single day, is just to try to give our players the very, very best, and for their families and their parents. And that's what excites us.
So I was going to ask you, what contributed to staying for 19 years, but I think that's the perfect encapsulation. So I'm going to pivot, and my question's going to go now on the other side. From your guys' point of view, you're in a meeting. What are you looking for in a young man, either if we're talking to juniors in high school that are getting ready to go into the process, or seniors in high school that might be joining that process late? What are you looking for in your athletes?
The one thing I would add, though, real quick before we pivot to that, though, you're asking about why you stay. Obviously, there's some of those things, internally that motivate me and our coaches, because we've had some coaches that have stayed here a long time too. But I think the other piece is there's really good people at a place like ONU. There's very genuine, faculty. Our athletic director is a really good person, and I think there's just some really good. You look at our department, you've had all kinds of people that have been there even longer than I have. Wrestling coach, athletic director, you go down the list of, the track coach, and it's pretty impressive. So I think they're really good people. But anyways, what are we looking for? I think the first thing, you're always looking for, of course, qualified students who love the game. Obviously, you have to have talent and character. But I think some of the intangible, some of the attributes we're looking for, we want guys that are that positive energy. We want to play the game. We want to coach the game and play the game with that energy, so I think that's something that, we want to have that on a consistent level. I think we want people that are really unselfish, that are going to unify the team. We talk about being unified. We want people that are going to work, I think there is no shortcut. There is no, right. I mean, there's no way around that. You got to work, you got to prepare. So I think workers, and I think competitors in our conference, every single week, and on our team, you're going to have good players. So at the end of the day, if you don't have positive energy, if you're not somebody that understands being unified and what that's all about, and you're not going to work or compete, then there's probably not the best fit. So those are some things that we're always looking for and always trying to develop and enhance and just really build from.
Well, and you referenced it now twice. Coach Hilbert referenced it in his episode. What is it about the OAC? Now, he called it the SEC of Division III. That's one hell of a rhyme if you're really trying to put it all together. But what makes the OAC so strong, in your opinion?
I think he's right. I agree. SEC of Division III. I definitely agree with that. So what makes it so great? I think, first of all, everybody cares. There is no team that's just mailing it in. There's no team that the administration just says, as long as you have a certain roster size, everything's good. No, absolutely not. They're always trying to get better. The coaches work hard. The coaches are talented. so it starts with people caring at the administrative level, athletic
Mhm.
directors, if there's a coaching change, they're trying to do something to help a new coach. And that's when sometimes you've been around a while, you're like, dang, man, every time they hire somebody new, they're giving them a little this and giving them a little that. I'm sitting here like they're getting better and better. And of course it does, it challenges you for sure. And it is humbling at times. So I think just, end of the day, the universities care, the administration cares, they hire good coaches, they're working their rear ends off, and they're talented. And I think that adds up to a really good combination. And there's some good rivalries and some good history and some good tradition that kind of can throw that too. But at the end of the day, I think people care a lot, and that makes it stressful.
Coach Donaldson had that thought as well. I had him on last week, and he said the same thing. It's if you don't go in best stuff, you can lose. It's not a question of if. You will. He said you will lose in the OAC, and it's just very interesting to me that the amount of competitiveness that is top to bottom in the conference. There's not a drop off. It doesn't seem.
No,
pivoting.
The gap is small.
To getting to know you, the person. First off, you pointed out as you were on your way to Fordham that you were engaged. And where did you meet your at that point future wife, now wife?
Wooster. I was coaching at the College of Wooster. She was, finishing school at Walsh, which is in Canton, but she was from Smithville, which is right by Wooster, kind of small town next to Wooster.
And then, so family-wise, you have a daughter and two sons. Your daughter graduated from ONU. You have a son who I believe is a junior at ONU now.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is it about, I guess, because your family, it's not just ONU either, because your parents were ONU, you have a brother that went to Mount Union, you have a brother that went to Muskingum. Like, you guys are really spread across this conference. Why, I guess, again, I'm going to ask, why have you stayed, and why have you kind of directed, I guess not directed, but your kids have now gone on to school where you work. What's that like?
It's pretty awesome. Going back to like my siblings, though, I was the oldest. So my brother Doug played DB. He was a year behind me. And because I had a fifth year at Mount Union, we were on the field against each other. So I was a running back. He was a DB. So that was pretty cool. And then Chad, my youngest, Brian, the next youngest, played at Mount Union. He was coming as a D tackle as soon as I was leaving. So we actually missed each other by playing for a year. And then my youngest brother, Chad, was a running back at Muskingum. We always joke, though, our sister, my baby sister, Lindsay, was the best athlete. She was the Division I athlete out of all of us. We were all D3 guys, but she ran track at William & Mary, so she was the stud athlete. The rest of us were just grinders. But with my kids, my daughter, it was funny because I really thought she was going to go somewhere else. She was a softball player at the time, and took, I think, 8 visits. Played travel softball, so she, had interaction with a lot of different coaches, and really thought she was ready to get out of Ada and do something different. That was kind of her personality. But as she kept taking the visits, she kept saying, like, man, Northern's campus is awful nice, and different comments about ONU and one day I think we were driving home in the spring of her senior year, and she said, I'm going to be a polar bear, and I was like, okay, that's awesome. We didn't force her at all with tuition exchange, how some of those things work. She came down to us, and one NCAC school and one OAC school, and then when she said she wanted to be a polar bear, it was great. It was pretty cool because I actually saw her more when she was in college, probably than I did when she was in high school. Because small high school, she's in 3 sports. She's on the dance team. She's in she's in everything at a small school. She's never home because she was always doing stuff. And now she's in college, like her major, she was in our building. She just pop in and sit in my office, like in between classes. We'd go to lunch every Wednesday. Like I literally saw her like almost every single day. And it was some of the players would tease her, and she became friends with a lot of our players. A lot of them were at her wedding and stuff like that. And they would tease her when she was a freshman, call her Poison, stay away from her, stay away from Poison, Coach Paul's daughter. But then they end up being really good friends. But my 2 boys, then, Bryce is, as you mentioned, a junior, and Brandon's a freshman. They looked around a little bit too. Not as many places as Kendra, but they both kind of in construction management, which is a really good program for us here. So kind of a niche, unique program. So they both kind of gravitated towards that, and it made sense, for them. They looked at some other good places as well to make sure they were, doing their due diligence and all that. But it's been fun. I mean, I think it's kind of they're always call me coach. They don't say dad or whatever, but come home they kind of obviously separate that. But it's been fun being around them, on a daily basis. So it's been great.
And Ohio Northern really seems like it's very family oriented for you, not only with your immediate family, but as you said, with the athletic director and the other coaches that have been there long term. You guys kind of seem to have a very close knit community, so to speak. So we're going to go rapid fire. There's 3 questions coming at you because I know that I heard in an interview you don't like to do 4s. 3s is the way to go.
Maybe, just simplify, I guess. Who knows? So whatever you got. If you got 4, whatever you want.
So the first question is, what's a morning routine like for you?
I would say right now, this time of year, I'm going to get up. We have a weight room group at 6 a.m. We have a strength coach running that, but I'll be out there kind of probably doing a couple of my little curls over the corner or whatever. I'll help him where I need to, but he's going to run the strength program, and I'll be out there trying to get a little exercise and just be around the players. I think being around there for our first 2 lifting groups, one at 6, one at 7, I see quite a few players, and I think that's pretty important.
Biggest pet peeve?
Contradictions. Not a big fan of people that are, just contradict, say one thing, do another, preach one thing, not follow through with it. But yeah, I think just contradictions, I think, are probably something. See it in politicians, you see it in, people in the media, and, that'd probably be one that stands out.
Let's see. Funny family stories. Funny family story that you'd like to share?
So I guess one of the, it's probably centered around my boys. Brandon's a real wise guy. So I mean, there's a bunch. I try to keep it, what's the one that stands out. Probably with both the boys. Okay, here's one. So we moved in a new office right during COVID. So real quiet on campus. We're painting, we're painting the office. I'm like, what are we gonna do? We're staying home. You guys come to the office, help me paint the new office, and that way when we back in the office later on, the coaches will, looks nice. Here we go. So they're moving slow though. I mean, like they're moving very slow. I'm like, come on, let's go. Let's pick up. Let's pick up the pace. Let's move a little faster. And they're both kind of like, not real happy. And then I think I said something like, I'm trying to get you guys ready for the real world. And my son Bryce turns to me and goes, in the real world, you get paid. And so all right, good point. I'm thankful to have some help, so I'll take it. But I got another good one real quick. You said one, but I got another one. My grandson. So my daughter, she has 2 kids now, so I'm a grandpa. And my grandson Lucas, he's here last week, and we had a couple in our basement. My son-in-law's here. We got something on one of the TVs for Lucas, like Paw Patrol or something like that. He's 3 years old. And then my son-in-law and one of my sons and myself were watching one of the games, and Paw Patrol's over. Lucas grabs the remote. He's flipping through, and I think one of the Avengers is on. It's like it's like PG-13 or something like that. He wants to watch that. He turns to me. He says, "Pop up." That's what he calls me. "Pop up. Can I watch that?" And I'm like, "Your dad's right there. Why don't you ask your dad?" And he goes, "Because he'll say no." He knows the sucker right here. Grandpa's gonna, Pop's gonna say yes. So I thought that was kind of funny. He's smart little guy.
Oh, that one got me. It caught me off guard a little bit. I had to clear my throat. One of these, I said 3. We're going 4. Gave me the opening for that.
Yeah.
The 3. If you had 3 people, history, athletes, coaches, whoever you want it to be, if you could have drinks with 3 people, who would it be and why?
Oh man. Have drinks with. So I always think about with drinks. I'm a big Jim Trussell fan, and I always think about Jim Trussell. When I used to work at Ohio State camp as a young coach. He used to always say, "Drink the first, sip the second, and refuse the third." So I always think about that. told our players that one time. One of our seniors, I was at a wedding, and one of the seniors says, "Coach, remember when I remember the advice you told us? Drink the first, sip the second." And he pulls out this big stein that he has right here, like this big, I've been practicing that for ever since I graduated. It's got this big stein right. Okay, smart guy. I guess because the whole message was about moderation. So
Yeah.
he's like, yeah, I listen to you, Coach. I listen. And he pulls out this big thing. But love Jim Trussell. Love I'm a big. I like studying Stoicism. Marcus Aurelius. I think there's some good Stoicism, just philosophies about. I can be pretty intense and stuff like that, just to stay calm and not overreact, and kind of put kind of things in perspective with just life. I think, and I think but Trussell, going back to just really respect and admire him a little bit. Then I'd probably say, we're talking. I guess you didn't really say dead, alive, whatever, but I don't know. Third one. I like movies. I think, like what's one of my favorite actors or something like that that's entertaining. There's a lot of entertaining actors out there, but I'd probably go with whatever act. I'm a big fan of Yellowstone right now, so maybe want to get Costner and learn some more about what what that film and that movie is all about, or that show is all about. Maybe something like that. It's kind of random, but that'd
be an interesting table.
That would be, that would be for sure. So, but there's a lot of great, a lot of great options there. So hard to narrow it down.
Well, and Coach, this one it's the last question of the show. It falls on to you. It's kind of your critique of me. Was there a question that you expected me to ask you? And if so, how would you have answered it?
There's a question. How would I answer it? So, I don't know if it's a question I was expecting, but one I always like to kind of, I think some people find interesting sometimes, or is just like a favorite coaching story or a coaching memory or something like that. And I always think about when I was at Tulane, we played Alabama and we played LSU, and because they were independent in those days. Tulane now is in changed conferences a couple different times, American Conference I think now, but in those days Tulane was independent, playing LSU, North Carolina. It was almost like a SEC schedule. So we're going to LSU, and they don't let you pull up close to the stadium, Tiger Stadium. You probably about 200 yards away. You go through a parking lot, chain link fence. People are shaking the fence as you're walking, and they're yelling "Tiger bait, Tiger bait." And I remember it was a wild experience, because as you're pulling up to the stadium, I'll never forget, there's a family, mom, dad, what looked like mom, dad, daughter, teenager, and then a younger son, 4 people. All 4 of them are flipping us off as we're pulling up into Tiger Stadium, LSU. So it's like, that's a little tone setter, right? As you walk in, everybody's shaking the fence. You go into the stadium at your locker room, and if you've ever seen on TV, Mike the Tiger is like a 400-pound Bengal tiger, is right outside the locker room. Somebody's shaking the cage, kind of rattling as you walk by. So I was like, this is the real deal, playing the SEC right here. But I've always said, like, a couple of our coaches, we joke around, like, if one of us wins the lottery, live polar bear exhibit right outside the coach's locker room. So we have a pact. There's about 4 of us that if one of us wins it, as long as it's but there's not animal rights activists or something that would let us pull it off. But if we could pull it off, live polar bear exhibit right outside the visitors' locker room. So,
well, it's interesting with that. I have a group of buddies. We graduated from Bethany College, home of the Bison. And we made it. We have said for years that if we had the right amount of money, we would get a live bison. And at the time, Coach Garvey was the head coach, and I told him what my idea was. Now, they just got a brand new turf field. He looked at me with a cup of coffee in his hand and went, "Over my dead body, you're putting a damn bison on that field. That thing's brand new. We're not doing it. You can put it anywhere else."
Right. I mean, it's pretty big animal. Probably put a few dents in the turf, maybe, but. It's
well,
that
Coach,
would be cool, though.
Thank you very much for taking time with us.
You got
it. Dean Paul of Ohio Northern University, going into his 20th season. As we did the math before the show, we were trying to make sure we were with the COVID year, and there's some people got a half a year, some people got a full year. Coach, good luck this year. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Around the OAC, I've got an invite to a Baldwin Wallace game. I got an invite to a Heidelberg game. I'm going to make my way to an Ohio Northern game.
Same here. You got it. You got, it's a great league and a lot of great coaches. Those are great guys you talk to. Enjoy them as people, and they're really good coaches. And great people, great coaches.
Thank you, Coach. And we are now going to send it to Serenity Brown and myself over at the Editorial for the wrap up of everything here. I'm sure, as we pointed out at the beginning, that first stat's going to be right at the top of her list, but that's why she's there. She's there to make us better and we improve. So again, Coach, thank you very much. Best of luck and enjoy the rest of the off season.
All the best to you as well. And this is fun. Yeah, it's fun to just talk some football and all that. So appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Coach.
What's going on, Chuckleheads? Welcome back to another edition of The Editorial. Serenity Brown. I am Carlo Guadagnino. We just watched head coach of Ohio Northern, Dean Paul, on my interview with him, and I will step out of the way. Go ahead.
I thought it was a good interview. It seemed to flow very well. He talked fast at some points, but he was always clear and concise, so I didn't really mind it at all. There was some awkward pauses towards the beginning, but as the interview went on, I feel like it definitely got better. You guys kind of...
When you say awkward pauses, is that awkward in the sense of like you call yourself awkward because you pause when speaking like a normal human? Or are you saying awkward pauses and it was like a substantiated, like a 2-second or a 3-second pause?
Yeah.
Okay.
Second one.
Okay. What else we got?
I did notice, and this isn't the first interview I've noticed it, but when you ask a question, there are points.
It's called DingoTalk.
What is it? You ramble, and sometimes you answer your own question.
It's called DingoTalk.
Okay, but if you're going to ask you in the question form, don't answer the question form.
Listen, I'm not used to getting the answers to questions right. So when I know the answer, I don't know how to not.
I also noticed that you did point out some wrong math there in the episode. So it made it a point to write it down to say, get your facts right.
Math is not a strong suit.
I have seen you do some good math, okay? So
money is involved, yeah. Cards are involved, absolutely. Trying to do math on the fly, not good. And I don't think he was all quite up on his mathematics either. Is that everything that you noticed from this week's episode?
Besides me slightly making fun of you because I knew you were sick during that episode, and there were some points. If anybody wants to watch back, there's a few points where you can look and see you holding back a cough. So I thought that was really funny.
Yeah, I figured it was not nice. It's not appropriate for them to listen.
Yeah.
When they're listening, I don't think they want to hear me cough on the... I mean, if you got, comment below. If you want me to cough in your ear, call me. We'll take care of that. I am going to charge a fee, though.
I think it's a fun game to point out. Go watch back and see if you can find the points where Carlo's holding back a cough.
You know what I think is a fun game? Give me 3 people that you would go have lunch with.
You.
I'm not historical. I am the least historical figure. History, serial killers, Disney characters, Disney villains, villains from a TV show characters. Give me something, woman.
Stop yelling at me.
I will not. We are now 4 weeks of this question. You'd think somewhere in these notes you would have written down a dang answer.
I think I've decided now, right now here on this point, that the more you ask me about it, I'm putting it off longer.
That's fine. We'll just keep asking. If you're asking yourself where you can find us, the social media platforms are Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, DingoTalk. On all of those, except for Instagram, it's Dingo_Talk.
Go ahead. I know you're going to say it. Go ahead.
I will not. There's litigation going on. We're not really sure what's all happening. There has been an Instagram war, and we are slowly but surely coming to terms on how we're going to devolve that. For those of you watching, obviously you know to find us on YouTube. For those of you listening, if you didn't know that, you can watch the show over on YouTube. But if you're listening, you're probably listening on Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, or anywhere else you can get a podcast, and we thank you for that. Do you have anything else that you would like to add?
I don't think so.
I'm going to add one more point. Next week is a pretty special episode for me. I had the opportunity to interview a person that I listened to on the radio for 25 years of my life, 27 years of my life, possibly. Big Pittsburgh sports guy, big sports radio guy. And it's a good time. He has some Natty Light. I have a ginger ale because I'm pretty sure I'm sick for that episode too, and my belly was a little upset, and I think he calls me on it at some point. So make sure you come back next week, 10 a.m. every Thursday. I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is Serenity Brown. This has been the Editorial as a part of DingoTalk, and as always, we'll catch you next week, Chuckleheads.
Thanks for checking out this episode of DingoTalk. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. For more info and to contact the show, you can find us on Twitter @DingoTalk.